coming up on 7 p.m. on this last day of January 1973. January 31st, 1973, Wednesday. And now stand by for the CBS Radio Network News at 7 p.m.
WCBS News 88, New York. In the headlines, Washington, President Nixon says Henry Kissinger goes to Hanoi February 10th through the 13th to discuss post-war relations between North Vietnam and the U.S. Saigon, although truce violations continue to decline, there was a series of new attacks by powerful North Vietnamese forces along the DMZ. Also coming up on News 88 the next half hour, these stories: New York, police audit the property clerk's office and put a price tag on all those missing drugs. Irene Cornell will report. New York, 4 fires broke out this morning in the World Trade Center. Fire department officials say they were set. In sports, the second day of the NFL draft. Details on worldwide sports coming up in 20 minutes.
Set your time to WCBS. 4 tones will follow. The final loudest one marks the exact time.
It's 7 o'clock.
Lowell Thomas brings the news. From the White House, from Vienna, from Lake Placid. News as reported by America's foremost newscaster, Lowell Thomas. Now, here is Lowell Thomas and the news.
Hello, everybody. The White House. President Nixon called a surprise press conference today, as you probably know by now. His first in more than 4 months. The president confirming an earlier report that Henry Kissinger will journey to Hanoi next week. Purpose, to discuss the subject of post-war aid. The president adding that he himself will confer later on with South Vietnam's President Thieu. Beyond that, the president also serving notice that he begins his second term in full fighting trim. At one point, telling the newsmen, "We have achieved a peace with honor," adding, "I know it gags some of you to write that phrase, but it is true." The president further accusing militant anti-war spokesmen of voicing the loudest criticism of the peace agreement, wondering aloud if they really want the wounds healed. The president going on to say, if the agreement is kept, there is no question that we will have peace, not only in Vietnam, but in Indochina for a long period of time. The president again assuming an adversary role in discussing possible amnesty for deserters and draft dodgers. "I have sympathy," said he, "for any individual who makes a mistake. We all make mistakes. But certainly," he went on, "we have to pay a price for our mistakes. And that price is a criminal penalty for disobeying, and not a junket in the Peace Corps." And then perhaps, warming to his subject, the president adding, "The war had little support among the better people in the media, intellectual circles, and some members of Congress. But it did have the support of a wide majority of Americans," said he. These, he added, including many Americans who paid a high price, some with their lives, some in prisoner of war camps for 2 or 3 years. In the search for a suitable site for the 1976 Winter Olympics, exit Salt Lake City, re-enter Lake Placid, New York. The latter submitting a new bid to the U.S. Olympic Committee. Same as before, a bid predicated on the receipt of sufficient state and federal funds for proper financing. Do you think Lake Placid is going to get it?
The preceding was America's elder statesman of radio newscasting, Lowell Thomas, now 80 years old, still being heard regularly weekday evenings at 7 p.m. over the CBS Radio Network. This is Charles Jordan.
On a Wednesday, the last day of January in 73. Thanks for joining us here at TIC.
Beat the Power Weather, brought to you by the 6 Reliance Furniture Sandwich Stores. Rain likely tonight through tomorrow night. Lows tonight in the mid-30s. High tomorrow in the upper 40s. Low tomorrow night in the low 30s. Mostly cloudy Friday with high in the 40s. Probability of precipitation 7% tonight, 80% tomorrow, and 7% tomorrow night.
That was Underneath the Stars, and it was played for you by Sidney Bowman and his old-time orchestra, and I hope it brought to you some of the feeling of those old-time dances that we used to do, and our mothers and grandmothers used to do long, long ago. It's a very charming and pretty tune, isn't it? Anyway, people, I'm going off now, and I'd like to thank you for coming with me down memory lane tonight here on CFRB Toronto, and I will be back again not quite the same time tomorrow night, because I follow Peter Head, who will have plenty to tell you about the skiing at 8:05 to 8:10. I'll come on from 8:10 to 9 o'clock here on CFRB Toronto tomorrow. So, until I have the pleasure of talking to you again then, this is Ray Sonin saying, as always, good night.
This is the Voice of America concluding its transmission from Greenville, North Carolina on this frequency.
This is Charles Jordan, Thursday, February 1st, 1973, the first day of February 1973.
In a moment, some scenes from the next episode of The Waltons.
Around here. Well, I'm afraid I have to. Our logging road's coming right through here. Well, you just take your new whatchamacallit thing on out of here. This is Walton land and has been since 1789.
Maybe you better take a look at this map.
I don't need no map to tell me where I am at. I was born here. You mean to say we have to go to court to keep them stealing our land?
What would you recommend we do, Will?
There's nothing you can do unless you go to court.
I'll tell you something, Liv. I'm scared right now.
Stay tuned for an exclusive interview with Henry Kissinger. The last interview given by the late President Johnson follows at 10, 9 Central Time. And later tonight, Bernard Kalb talks with President Thieu. 3 important broadcasts tonight on CBS.
It's no shame to have wanted to end the war more quickly than we did. And what we attempted to do was to create the basis for a constructive policy at home and abroad. And this is why the President has thought it was so important.
Dr. Kissinger, I've only got about 438 questions left, but we've run out of time. I certainly hope that sometime soon you'll invite us back. Thank you very much, and good night.
A conversation with Henry Kissinger was recorded earlier today and presented in its entirety at this time. Stay tuned for LBJ, The Last Interview, a conversation between Walter Cronkite and the late president, filmed just 10 days before his death, next on CBS.
Well, Mr. President, do you think that on this great, still unresolved issue of civil rights, we shall overcome?
I certainly do. Later tonight, President Thieu of South Vietnam talks with CBS News correspondent Bernard Kalb. Don't miss the exclusive interview tonight at 11:30, 10:30 Central on CBS.
Friday, February 2nd, 1973, and the time is coming up on 12:25 p.m. and now stand by for excerpts of the CBS Midday News with Douglas Edwards.
Look for Love of Life on CBS weekdays 1/2 hour earlier, 11:30 a.m., 10:30 Central and Pacific. Every day, Monday through Friday, for Where the Heart Is. This program was recorded.
This is the CBS Midday News with Douglas Edwards. Good day from the CBS newsroom in New York. South Vietnamese President Thieu announced today that his country will begin political negotiations with the Viet Cong no later than next Tuesday. They'll take place in Paris. They're designed to solve the internal problems of South Vietnam. In South Vietnam, meanwhile, ceasefire supervisors went out into the field for the first time to Pleiku, Da Nang, and Hue. It was a small group of Canadians, Indonesians, Poles, and Hungarians, and they really went there just to inspect their regional quarters. President Nixon today appealed to Congress to work with him in achieving administration goals. Details from Dan Rather in Washington.
This was supposed to be the President's State of the Union message. As it turns out, it will be several messages. He did not deliver it in person to Congress, as presidents generally do. He kept it short, heavy on generalities, light on specifics. He said that details will come later.